Well, howdy, friends and floorheads. Use my mic here at the right volume. There we go. It is time to break down another adventure site. This is my fourth adventure site for Forbidden Lands that I'm breaking down. So far, we've done Amber's Peak, we have done the Hollows, and we've also done Weatherstone. In the AP, which we're now on episode coming up 25, I'm anticipating the players to be headed to Stoneloom Mines. So instead of just doing this by myself, I thought I would show you guys and do it with you. So let's talk about how I do this very quickly. I'll be using Foundry VTT. They have official modules for both Raven's Purge as well as the core game Forbidden Lands. It is by far my favorite VTT for running all the games on the third floor, but especially for Forbidden Lands. So Stoneloom Mines. This is probably the most dungeony of any of the adventure sites in Raven's Purge. You can just see by looking at the map. I mean, this is just a straight up dungeon. But how do I get ready for this? So I've laid a lot of seeds, but let's talk about where I've gotten those from. So what I'm going to bring up, and this is also obviously in the book, but I'm pulling it up here in the VTT. Let's take a look at a breakdown. So there is a legend for each of these sites. I've never used the legends as is, but I do glean really how I'm going to use the site, and I'll drop seeds for the players, often, based on the legend itself. So let's quickly look at the Stoneloom legend. The Stoneloom legend, some say that Myrmidian dwarves abandoned the Stoneloom mines after the Third Alder War, but the truth is they were eaten by something that moved into their home. Rumors whisper that the mad wizard Zygerfer cursed his family as they fled his ever more frightening presence. Tainted by a demonic infection, his daughter Marga sought shelter among the dwarves in the Stoneloom mines, where she turned into a monster and consumed her hosts. Now, none have dared enter the caves since. Now, this is going to give me a nice little summary of what to anticipate as I start breaking this down. Now, what did I do with my players? When they were at Amber's Peak and they encountered Zertome, who's the son of Zygerfer, I planted a couple seeds about his sister being in the mines. I've also given them the rumor through Marigal that there is another gem, right? Another Elven gem in there. Hey, McBluff. So that's what's driving him here. Marigal says, if you're going to be collecting these things, the next one you need, because they've got the scepter, the next one you need is in the mines, and there you should also find the sister. So that's the first thing. All right, next we go take a look at the intro. So here it's going to give you a whole bunch of background in the intro. And I'm not going to read it here on the stream. I highly recommend you do it. It's going to give the story of really the two main NPCs that your players are going to encounter here, and that is going to be Marga, the sister, and the other person who is here is the wife, Martea. And I've not hinted that the wife is here yet. Now, one thing I do love is the getting here sections of these adventure sites. These are wonderful encounters that you can give to your players outside of the sites that can direct them, right? Because we're doing a hex crawl, and if you wanted them to find these sites, you're going to have to put up some signposts. And, there's a million ways to do it, but I love the ones that they put in the book, because even though I may not use them whole cloth, they again will spark some ideas. So the first one, which I did not use, is the Dwarven Scout. The adventurers encounter a Dwarven Scout from the Meromanian clan, desperately looking for his lost brothers. He knows that the warrior Milva and her fellow dwarves traveled to Stoneloom to investigate if the mines were still usable after all these years. They never returned. It has fallen on to scout the area around the mines and report back any findings. He knows the legend of the mines and can offer you to join the adventurers to explore the place. I may have show up. I haven't completely said no to Ulm. I really want to see kind of what happens as they head south. They're headed. They've returned to the Hollows. I think they're pretty much wrapped up at the Hollows. I'm anticipating them to head south back towards the mines, which they were pointed to after Amber's Peak. I'm going to put a small homebrew village between them and the mines. It's going to be an opportunity for them to rest, an opportunity for them to stock up. They're going to need to stock up because this is the first time they've gone into a dungeon, and legitimately they could spend 4 days exploring this dungeon, which means they need to load up on torches, they need to load up on provisions. So I'm going to give them that idea there. Hey, Koch, recently discovered the first Forbidden Lands videos from Third Floor Wars and really love them. Glad to catch you live. Hey, I appreciate you watching, my friend. Appreciate you watching. So I may use Ulm. Now, I don't know if I want Ulm to be so spoilerish. I want what the sister is, and this thing is really cool. And I've got plans on how I want to kind of reveal this. So I don't really like Ulm telling him everything. Now, finding the body of Ulm could be interesting, maybe with a letter from Merva. So that may happen. And that might give them a little bit more to work from. Now, the second one is the little playmate. This one I did use, and it was funny because I used it as part of a random encounter that just came up. So they were headed around towards the mines before they got distracted. Got poisoned, and they ended up back at the Hollows with a disease, and they got cured. And I killed somebody. I killed one of the NPCs that they really cared. Anyway, but I had this little playmate teaser happen. There's a random encounter in the plains and the hills where they come across a woman and her child. And I played that out. I tied it to Amber's Peak in a way that made me very satisfied. Had her going to Amber's Peak as they were leaving, and I had the little girl, the child, talk about the little playmate. So real quick, Daja, the Aisling, and her daughter Lumi are traveling the land on horseback. So this is who I introduced the team to. The characters to. They will meet the adventurers and ask them to join them for supper around the campfire. During the night, Daja will tell tales of the plains of Aisling, home to her proud ancestors, and of the demons that eventually ravaged the lands. Before bedtime, the daughter, Lumi, wants to tell the adventurers about her new playmate, but is immediately hushed by the protective mother. It turns out the pair camped outside of the Stoneloom mines recently, and Lumi was awakened in the middle of the night by a strange girl claiming to be called Marga and wanted to play. I think this is great. Super, super creepy. So that's the seed that I used. And I've heard the players mention it a few times. I don't know how much it sticks, but when they then encounter her again, this little girl again in the mines, then if they, it won't be the first time, right? They would have remembered that this little Aisling girl had already mentioned it. All right, so we've gone through, we've looked at the summary, the getting here. Then we break down all of the locations. Now, I don't go right to the locations with a site. Where I go next is I will peruse the NPCs. I'm not going to read all of it. I just want to get an idea of who's involved here at the site. So I'll flip right to the NPC section. So NPCs that are in this site, we've got Milva and the dwarves. We've got a lesser demon. We've got Marga, the demonic mass. We've got Martea, who's the mother. And that's really it. That's the main characters here. And just so Marga has transformed into this demonic mass that has really possessed the entire mines. And you'll see as we walk through the events, which is going to be next, where you're going to see how she does this. I think there's an incredible amount of opportunity for tension, for mystery. There's a lot of possibility and quite frankly, horror with this. Then you've got the mother. So this is Zygraffer's wife. She has acquired one of the swords. So she has one of the gems. It's Malagarn, the sword Malagarn, that's got one of the elven gems in it, that eventually needs to go into the crown in order for them to defeat Zygerfer. I'll just read it. Martea may have acquired the sword Malagarn from someone who previously ventured into the mines. She views it as a threat to her family and may either use it or just store it. The adventurers can obtain Malagarn either by killing Marta or by gaining her trust. She may also have one of the other artifacts presented in the Game Master's Guide. You'll see in a second the form that this mother has taken. All right, let's go to events. Now, again, this is how I do it. When I'm pulling out my Raven's Purge book, this is the sequence I go to. I used to go right to the map and right to the different sections of it, but you have no context as you're reading through this. I think in order to understand these sites and really before you dive into the individual locations at these sites, this is how I get context so that when I'm there looking at it, I have a much better understanding of what I'm looking at. Okay, so these are the events. So these are things that are going to could happen or will happen in the mines. The first one is Marga's song. So Marga's the sister. A girl's voice is heard singing strange lullabies from the cracks in the mountain structure, or a tentacle that hangs from the ceiling, for example, or via a tentacle hanging from the ceiling. And then here's the nursery rhyme. Sister, brother, how we wax, mother and father sharpen the axe. This can be repeated when it suits the atmosphere. I can't wait for this. And I'm going to have this. Now, they talk about it, them being able to see a tentacle and stuff like that. I think I'm going to just have this happen, but no visual, all auditory. Similar to what I had happened if you watched the most recent Adventure in the Hollows when they went into the tomb, the crypt up at the top of the mountain there. This auditory, illusion of some sort. And not on purpose, but this young child has become a theme in my Forbidden Lands. We keep seeing young children ghosts. We keep they rescued a child who turned out to be the daughter of one of the factions at Amber's Peak. So this is going to be thematically tie in nicely. Super creepy. I'm going to play this super creepy and probably do it rather earlier. Hey, Adventure Syndicate, how are you? Welcome. All right, next, the Playful Demon. Margot wants to play. This is the sister, right? The demonic mass. A tentacle attempts to steal something or brusquely throws someone from the party to the ground as the voice of a girl calls, "You're it," and giggles. Overall, the GM should let the adventurers interact with Margot without necessarily leading to an outright battle. This I will do after they've heard the voice a few times. Really, really think this has a ton of potential. So we've set up the spookiness, right? We've got this voice, this child nursery rhyme coming from nowhere. Use this as a pacing tool. When things start to drag, our adventurers might need a little bit of a push. It's time to drop an event. This is fantastic. Creepy tentacle, a mass fall. It forms out of the cracks in the side of the wall and comes in, takes something, or just tags them. And the little girl's voice saying, "You're it," and the tentacle retreating, I think has tremendous amount of potential. I think this is also an opportunity where I may have her manifest as the child in after the game to allow them to interact with Marta. The Frightened Dwarf. Adventurers run into a lost and terrified dwarf from Merva's group. The dwarf doesn't know where the others are, but a friend who was with him has been captured by monsters nearby and probably still alive. It is possible that the dwarf acts and talks funny due to being possessed by a demon who only wants to accompany the party to the surface and to live. This is fine. Not my favorite event. I may or may not use it. Again, I never know where the players are going to go. This could turn out to be the perfect event to drop on them. So I'm glad I've got this in my pocket. This is really what I love about how Eric and who wrote the Forbidden Lands, and how, just in general, how Free League organizes Forbidden Lands. This adventure site concept is great. It gives you really a Forbidden Lands is a big sandbox, and each of these adventure sites are little sandboxes. So as I go in here as the GM, I've got all of these tools to use. So I read this and I'm like, meh, but it could end up being a perfect encounter, and I've got it right here ready for me. The bell tolls. The nearest signal bell tolls when the adventurers get to where the bell is located. They just see a shadow disappear in the gloom. Only the swinging bell remains. Monsters close by may have become intrigued. Again, some really some neat opportunities for tension. I think one thing that's going to be key when we get into the entrance here and we start talking about the mines, I'm going to have to, I really want to play up the paranoia, the closeness, the closed nature of this. I feel like when we run dungeons, because it's been such a part of the culture of RPGs, we don't really think about what a dungeon is, right? I mean, we're talking about our players going 40, 50 feet underground with no light. The only thing they have is torches, and the darkness and the smells and this, all of the different sensory things. I'm really going to do my best when I run this site to present a dungeon as scary as I think dungeons should be. And this bell tolls, perfect example of how I could do that. Here's another good one. White mushrooms. While the adventurers are resting, they suddenly notice how a wide meshed web of white mushrooms like strands that have grown from cracks in the mountain and quickly cover one or more members of the party. They seem to emit a low, soft tune like a lullaby. What the threads are or what their purpose is, the adventurers will never know, and they easily are torn off. Something small like that, make sure they never feel safe. So there is no question I'm going to use that. Depending on the pacing, it might be the first time they make camp, especially if they fail to keep watch roll. I think this, again, has an opportunity to really up the tension. There's a cave-in. You can always have a cave-in happening. And it's really not bad. It's a 6 base die roll for attack. So I don't know. May use it, may not use it. I don't know. Gas leak. This one's pretty serious. Someone picks up the scent of methane. If the party doesn't immediately put out the fires, there will be an explosion within minutes or two. And if so, roll for an attack with 8 base die, weapon damage 1. Against each adventurer, it is not possible to dodge or parry the attack. It's not that 8 die attack. You're going to average what? 1 to 2, points of strength damage. It could be devastating. They would be able to use armor. I don't know if I'll use this. I might do the smell of methane, though, just again to up the tension. All right, now we're getting to some meat here. Marga's Fury. Eventually, the demonic creature that has assimilated Marga will run out of patience with the adventurers. If they don't quickly appease it, the demonic mass will furiously attack the party to assimilate them. When Marga wants most of its playmates, what Marga wants most of all is playmates, and preferably of her own age. If the adventurers can trick her into believing they are children who have come to entertain her, her anger will subside. And here's why it's going to be key to build up and plant the seeds of the playfulness of Marga throughout the dungeon before they really encounter her, before she runs out of patience. Otherwise, they have zero chance of guessing this. So things like the tag thing. I think the first time Marga appears visually as the little girl, have her be playful, very childlike, asking them to play, right? Asking them, to like, show me a game, things like that. If I don't plant those seeds, they have zero chance of potentially finding the solution. Of avoiding Marga. Marga's nasty and could kill the entire party. Now, the other crazy thing here is, oh yeah, Coda. It's really it's become quite a theme, this entire girl ghost thing. But the girl ghost that the travelers mentioned outside of Stoneloom Mines, that's part of one of the teasers to get him to come here. Now check out this, the Mother's Lament. The demonic creature that was once I don't know how I'm going to pronounce her name, Martea. I'll have to decide because I've been doing a Marta or Martea. Martea will stay with. Becomes intrigued by the adventurers and surprises them when they least expect it. It can, for example, happen by her emerging from the floor or through a wall with her immense worm body. She will ask them where they came from, if Zygofer or Zertome has sent them, and say that their lives are in grave danger. She claims that there is only one way to escape. Marga's wrath will be saved by Martea herself. In a way, she is right. Anyone whose face is assimilated into Martea's body will live for a long, long time, but it may not be what they had imagined. Yeah, she is a huge freaking worm. The mother has transformed itself into, and it's got the faces of everybody she's assimilated out in the mines. All these dwarven faces are across her body. I will see where it happens. That she actually has a lair, so they might get to her. But you see, I can spring the mother anytime that I want. One of the things that I want to figure out, and I might do it when we have Marga interact with the party, is I don't want this to when the mother shows up, when Martea shows up, I don't want this to be the first time they've heard of her. So I think either I'm going to have Marga mention mom, or I haven't seen mom, or don't tell mom. Remember, they've only heard about the sister, the daughter, the little girl so far. And when the mom shows up, and I was thinking, maybe even having the mother's voice first before they see her, right? So they think this conversation, who sent you, all of this stuff, and then the worm shows up, and that's what's been talking to them. I think that could be absolutely horrific. Don Wookie Gunner, are you going to get your daughter to record some lines for the little girl? No. Though I will tell you, I was playing around with potentially using a live voice changer for the ghosts in the tomb, but I ended up not doing it, which I'm happy. I'm spinning enough plates when I run things. But that would be kind of cool though, to get her to do the nursery rhyme. I don't know. Maybe I will, Don. Now you put an idea in my head. All right. So I've gone through all the events. I've gone through the NPCs. I've got phenomenal context, right? Now I'm ready to start diving in. So let's actually go to the map. And where we start is here at the entrance. So right here is where they enter in, and here's the door. Now, something I love in Foundry is all the sites are tagged on the map. So we have our mine entrance, and I just double click it, and it brings it right up for me. The keys here with the mine entrance, I want to really build up that there was at some point some sort of village just outside the mines, right? That's where these dwarves lived before the mines were taken from them. Long gone. I want this to happen before the blood mist. Or I'm sorry, the town will be destroyed during the blood mist, but I want them to see, this destruction. So they're going to see that. They're going to go to the mine entrance. The one description in there I really like is the two large wooden doors that close the mines up. One of the sides of the doors has been torn off, so it's going to have that dilapidated feel. Now, they are going to go down some steps. I want, before they get to the shaft, you can see this huge shaft here, and we'll talk about what that is here in a second. Before they get there, that's when I'm going to start with, this is what you smell. This is pure darkness. If you don't have a torch in your hand, and you don't have the light of the torch, and you go outside of the light of the torch, you cannot see your hand in front of your own face. I want the steps to be slippery. That they're damp. I'm gonna have some moss and maybe some fungus that's throughout the walls, but I want to get that claustrophobia going right from the very beginning. So the next thing that happens is they come to the stairwell. So below a ramp of steps, an 8-meter wide circular shaft opens up, plunging into darkness. Spiral stairs worm their way down the sides. Odd whimperings and munching sounds rise from the deep. A thick rusty chain hangs from a huge winch, all of which are rusted together. This is a phenomenal first area and encounter for this, right? So we've got this dark shaft. We've got the spiral staircase going around the outside, taking them down. The rusted chain that's fused. This is what they used to bring up the mine cars. The sounds below. They are now going to descend. What I think is going to be key here for me is have this descent take almost a quarter day. I want them to recognize how far down they're going and how careful they have to walk. There's no railings. The steps are worn. They're wet. Some of the steps have this fungus and this moss growing on it. So, and the reason why is because I don't want them, I want them to go, well, I don't know if this is how we can escape. If we need to get out of here quick, I don't know if we can get out of here quick. Again, ratcheting up the tension, taking them down. So they go down. Now, when they come out, took a cave tour in the Shenandoah Valley, Sidewinder says, went way down, and then they turn off the lights. It's freaking terrifying. It is. So, Sidewinder, I have a thing about underground. I am typically not claustrophobic, but there is something about being underground that freaks me out. Even like, when I get freaked out when I land in LaGuardia and have to go under the Hudson and I take the tunnel into the city. It freaks me out. And what'll be great is if I can convey that while I'm running this. Yeah, it is, Coda. It's that weight of that rock and that idea. And it'll be key for me to talk about that as I'm GMing. As they're walking now, as they exit out of this passageway and they walk into these first hallways, the first dungeon. And, I'm going to talk about, at some point you look up at the ceiling and realize the tons of earth between you and the surface right now that's just suspended above you, being held by these carved columns and these wood timbers. I want that. Oh, that's going to be potentially so good. All right. So now keep in mind, I'm going to do this all theater of the mind. I'm not going to give them a map. I'm not going to walk them through a map. This is a potential danger for me. I think that there's a reason why we very typically go with maps, especially for this type of a dungeon crawl. It's going to be key for me to give them tags to remember about the different rooms so that they can say, Craig, we want to go back to the so-and-so room. I want to head back here. I'm not going to let them get lost here, right? Just because they don't have a map. It's very possible I could definitely see either Dave or Brian, those two players, or even Jim, honestly, keeping track of these different areas for it. One of the main reasons I don't want to use a map is I don't want this to feel like Diablo. I don't want them to get focused on navigating this room to that room. I want them to feel like the players feel, which is, quite frankly, scared and trapped. All right, so the first thing that they're going to encounter is either this antechamber or the chapel. So let's talk about the antechamber first. The shaft plunges deeper into the mountains, but at the stairs end at a sloped tunnel with slotted tracks on the floor. You can see a faint light at the top of the slope. Now, one of the key things I'm going to want to focus on here is explain this shaft. So when they get to the bottom of this shaft, they're going to see the end of the tracks for the mine car, right? So they're going to be able to recognize that mine cars were brought here. That's likely what this chain is. The chain I'm going to have not reach all the way down. I'm going to have it broken halfway up so that's, several stories above them. And then this antechamber is going to show them, that this was a functioning mine at some point. Nothing really going on here. The chapel, on the other hand, is a little bit more interesting. So let's talk about the chapel. Crystals glimmer in the ceiling of this beautiful cave, reflected from fluorescent algae. This is going to be the first time they encounter this algae. There are parts of stone benches and sculptures on the walls, but everything is collapsed and decayed. Bone fragments and large shells are strewn across the floor. When I describe this, I am going to make sure how clear I am about not only the bones on the floor, but I'm going to talk about, calling them shells doesn't do it justice. These are going to be insect carcasses, right? Like the shedding, an insect shedding a carcass. So the glaive, so the actual description is a cave with glimmering salt crystals in the ceiling has been decorated as a chapel to the god Huge. So it's going to be another, hey, Gareth Hunter, thank you. This will be a way for me to also introduce Huge, which I think they've heard of Huge. I don't think we've ever encountered that. So this is a chapel, a temple for Huge. The sloping passage from the cave has two alcoves housing dilapidated wheelbarrows, carts, tools, and barrels of grease. A staircase leading down to the car depot can be found behind it. Now, we do have a demonic mass here. So a demonic mass clings to the ceiling here, half-heartedly sending down the occasional tentacle towards anything living. It can be easily avoided if discovered. Broken bones and chitinous shells from large insects are scattered beneath it. These large insects will be encountered later. I don't know if I'm going to have this mass show up here. That's really, really early. I think it might create some confusion with the daughter, with Marga. It's possible that I'm just going to describe this chapel, the salt crystals, Huge, again, makes this distinctly dwarven. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if I do anything with this demonic mass. All right, here's the cart depot. Here's a place where they can essentially do an Indiana Jones ride. A row of empty carts, some of which have fallen apart and some of which are whole, stand in a row. Their wheels are slotted into the shallow furrows into the floor, leading towards a gate opening to a narrow tunnel that slopes downward. Grease can be found nearby in sealed jugs. If the cart is greased and pushed down the sloping tunnel, it races down the tunnel at dizzying speeds and doesn't stop until it reaches the water-filled loading area. So let's take a look here. So they come here. The cart is going to take them down this passageway and lead them to here. I'll be shocked if my players do this. But it is possible. All right. So past the chapel, we have some saurians, the lair of the saurians. This could be interesting. They've never encountered, I don't know. Have they encountered non-human humanoids like this? I don't think they have. Very simply two saurians. Saurians live in this area. They've been living down here for a while. They are these large, I'll bring it up for you. They're basically like lizard men. Not too nasty. This crew can definitely handle them. So I'm not too concerned about that. But makes it kind of dungeony, right? All right, so now we've got two places. So we get past here. We've got this tiered steps down, and then we've got the long passageway here. So let's first talk about this escarpment. You find a steeply sloped cave. Wooden ladders that are partially rotted through follow trickles of water down the withered rock face. If you slide down at your own risk, triggering a rock slide, this is a great opportunity for the GM to cut off the way back behind the adventurers and force them to find another way. There are 2 small breaches in the slope. I don't know. We'll see what I do with that. But the log drift, a straight and wide tunnel lined with timber pillars, disappears into the darkness as far as the eye can see. The mountain is unstable. The northern part of the tunnel, several small cave-ins have occurred here. I'm not going to use that. That does nothing for me. All right, the tomb. Blue flickering light shines out of a side chamber. Something appears to be moving in there. Miners who have died over the years have been placed in 10 sarcophagi in a beautifully carved out cave. 3 fresh dwarven corpses have been invaded by demonic flesh and awakened as ghouls. There are a few valuables in the sarcophagi and blah, 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 blah. So we've got 3 dwarven ghouls. Could be interesting. You can see their strength is only 4, so not too much for this party by any stretch of the imagination. And the rules for monsters in combat don't apply to undead. Instead, they act normal fighters. They've got a virulence 4 disease, though, as part of their bite. So that potentially could be nasty. I think this crew is not a huge fan of diseases. Seeing a disease almost took them out. All right, so that's the tomb. Again, can be played super creepy. Super, super creepy. Let's continue this way. So past the tomb, we now have the insect shaft. This, I think, has a lot of potential. So here we've got a shaft that's leading back up to the surface, a completely smooth shaft. There's going to be no way for them to really, be able to use this as an escape route. Very quickly, we've got insectoids here. They're going to hear the chittering above. I'm going to have sunlight come down, though, so I want this to be a point of interest. I'm going to have light flooding the room coming from the shaft here. They're going to hear the chitinous sounds, that type clicking and things like that. We'll see what they do about it. If they do nothing, I'll have D6 plus 3 insectoids attack them. Taking a look at the insectoids, their strength, they're a 7 strength critter here. And they've got 1 damage 2 bite. So yeah, it could be nasty. They're cool critters. I had an insectoid in my home game. Almost kill one of the druids. Got really lucky on a roll, and the druid had a really bad. I think he tried to dodge, and I think the critical injury was losing an arm, much like Aldrich did. It was, I think, like literally the first combat that those poor guys had in that local group. Broken record here, but I'm going to give them a bunch of forewarning and set the stage, build the tension with the sounds, the noises, and I don't want this to be just room to room, monster to monster. I want that the characters, and hopefully eventually the players along with it at times, to be on edge the entire time. I'm also going to be very careful about tracking time. I'm going to have torches going out. I want them unsafe at all times. I never want them to feel safe. These insectoids can be a good tool to make sure that happens. All right, so where could we potentially go next? Let's start heading down this way. Maintenance chamber. Below a vertical passage with a ladder is a small cramped chamber with machinery. The ladder continues down but ends in water. A lever is set to the wall. Trowels with the grease sit on the floor. A thick axle leads into the shaft beyond. If the lever is pulled down, the machinery will start working and the axle will slowly begin to revolve. Since the pumping station is steam powered, curtains of steam will impair vision in the proximity of the machinery and rise through the shaft. The machinery will break down 16 hours after being activated unless the axle and the cogwheels have been greased. If the adventurers are further down into the mine by then, they will slowly begin to fill. It will slowly begin to fill with water again. So this is pumping the water out that we're going to see here in a little bit. The idea of that pumping out the water and then it later potentially filling back up again, fantastic. So here we've got the pumping station. We've got a loading area after water has been pumped, because this is all underwater if they don't make this happen. Nothing really happening there. Let's see what we got over here. We've got a cavern. Now let's talk about this. Could be accessed by going down this escarpment, or potentially from coming past the pumping station here. Nothing happening. All right, cool. Breached bugs. Strange sounds fill several small hollows where a few violet crystals sparkle on the walls. The hollows are so-called vugs, natural crystal cavities into which the dwarves have carved their way in so to harvest amethysts. 4 lesser demons have settled in the area. They are always hungry. The adventurers can squeeze themselves down into the vugs for the shaft through the cracks to get through the cavern. Okay, so we got 4 lesser demons and some treasure. I'm going to have to spend some time thinking about this. I like the idea of them encountering these demons. Yeah, I'm going to think about this. Maybe I'll have them spot some amethyst, and they're going to have to maybe squeeze through these vugs in order to get to them, and that's when I spring the demons onto it. This is an encounter that I'm going to have to play with. Let's take a look at our demons to see how nasty they are. There's 4 of them. Oh, we're going to roll for them. Okay, so here's one. I am going to pre-roll these. I will have the demons ready to go for when they get there. So he uses the demon rules, which is fine. I'm going to do that ahead of time. All right, the mining shaft. This is where they will potentially encounter Merva. So the smell of mushrooms emanates from below the escarpment, blah, blah, blah. This Merva and her dwarves have been living off of these mushrooms, as well as the water that comes through here. They're going to find this. I like, if the adventurers spend a turn, 15 minutes on collecting them. This is the mushrooms. They will receive 2d6 units of food. The scratches on the door are from small demons that live in the breached vugs. So that's signs of the demons from before. There's no encounter in here, but you do roll for a random encounter. Now, Merva, the encounter of Merva, they are here. So that encounter that I talked about, Merva and the dwarves, that's going to be located here behind these doors. They're going to find her. And basically, they have been down here for, I'm going to probably have them down there for months. And the only thing that they're interested in doing is getting the hell out. Now, the book doesn't mention anything about this situation here, this kind of broken bridge shaft. I'm definitely making that a part of it. They may never cross it. But that's good old dungeony right there, right? All right, let's head over here. Now, we don't know whether they're going to get this underwater. You'll notice that all of this underwater area, not a whole lot going on. The only thing that's key is the abyss worms that show up. This is what the mother has become, as an abyss worms. This is an opportunity for them potentially to encounter those abyss worms. They are nasty. They are strength 14. Their attacks are disgusting. So a lot of damage too. 9 and 10 base dice. These things are these huge maggot-like. And when I say huge, I'm talking, 12, 13 feet long. And just this bulbous maggot-like, just slime. I'm going to really play these things up. I would like them to encounter these worms before they encounter the mother, so that they see them. So I might have these worms show up somewhere else if we don't see them headed down here. We got a whole bunch of algae down here. There's a demon there. Potential place where they might encounter Marga, the daughter. Here we have an iron gate. Now, they're basically saying that this is Marga's burrow. Remember, that's not necessarily where they're going to have to encounter the sister. I'm sure that I will have them meet the sister and have an encounter with the sister outside of this area. We got it. And the book talks about that. So, all right. So here's Marga's burrow here. This is where the final potential confrontation with her might be. This is the escape. So this is a lift apparatus that if they do get to here, it will lift them up and they will be able to get out. Did I miss anything? No, that is the Stoneloom mines. So let's go backwards a little bit. A couple key things for me. One, I want this to be unlike any other dungeon that any of these experienced RPG players on my group have ever come across. I want there to be a little bit of nostalgia of this being a dungeon crawl, but I want to invoke a level of tension, a level of fear, a level of claustrophobia, a level of being unsafe that they may never have seen before. I don't want this to be a room-to-room, random monster fest. Key stories here. I think the key stories are the dwarfs that have been living down here trapped. I'm going to put some more thought into really how they're going to handle this. I don't think that they would help the party. I think that they will either insist on staying there because this is all too dangerous and shoo the party away, or they may just take off. I think there's a very good chance they'll never get to these dwarves because, again, of the broken bridge there. The creepy daughter manifesting as a little girl, the tentacles, the playfulness, the encounter with this thing. Let me bring her up real quick just so you can get a sense of just how nasty she is. Well, here's the mother. The abyssal worm, Martea. She's an 18 strength creature. She's got an armor rating 10 and some really, really nasty monster attacks. An attack aimed at the mouth of an abyss worm suffers a -2 penalty, but if it hits the worm, is not protected by any armor. So that's interesting. But the mother is nasty. Could kill the entire party. But let's talk about Marga. Marga the Demonic Mask is strength 24. No armor rating. She is tough. The Demonic Mask is very difficult to damage and will suffer a maximum of 1 point of damage from a physical attack, regardless of the results. So even if they use Rustbite, she's only going to take 1 damage at a time. So that means she's got to get hit 24 times with regular physical attacks. The avatar that wears the appearance of Marga is a girl. See Marga's burrow, talks about that. Has strength 3. And if the answer is defeat it and give it a coup de grace, the creature will die. The demonic mass will... however, do anything to stop the adventurers from attacking the avatar. That's interesting. I don't remember when I first read that, paying attention to that in the listing. I'm going to have to think about that. I mean, that makes her far more killable. It also gets a little bit into my lines and veils. Not a huge fan of violence against children. Not that anybody is, but doing that in RPGs, even if it's an avatar, it's probably a good chance. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about it. I'm going to have to think about it. Maybe if I make her as unnatural as possible in her appearance. I'm gonna have to think about it. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm not real sure. Not real sure what I want to do with that. I'll be honest with you. It may come down to me seeing how it plays out. I find it far more interesting for them to have to deal with the mass itself. And then it says here she's immune to manipulation. Now, she is demonic, which means that if the party has rustbite, that can be helpful as far as getting to it because of the large die, but and being successful in hitting it. But keep in mind that even with rustbite, it only takes 1 damage to physical damage. That means magic is a different story. So those are the big things in the Stoneloom mines. I am excited to run this. I think there is potential of it being deadly. I hope it doesn't. I'm a big fan of my party. I want conversations with the mother and conversations with the daughter to give them a little bit more lore dump, to talk about Zygerfer. I think this is where I will make it clear that Marta is not the only sister, the only daughter. It might be where I hint at her being the daughter that Zygerfer didn't choose, and make them go, oh, wait, there's another daughter out. So now we've got Zertome, we've got Marta here as this demonic mass, but there's some other daughter out there. This might be a good opportunity to drop that. And I've got 2 ways of doing it. I have conversations with the mother or the daughter to do that. The other thing that's been talked about, people have talked about with my Hollows breakdown, as well as the Weatherstone and the Amber's Peak, about me revisiting those and doing a post discussion about how it actually went after we did the kind of the pre-talk here. I think that's a great idea. I think I might do that. Go back and talk about, lessons learned in running Amber's Peak, what I thought really worked at the Hollows, what I liked happened at the Weatherstone. So I'll probably do that. If you have not been watching me run this game, highly recommend you. Like I said, we're 25 episodes in now. We are having a blast. This game is wonderful. It is without a doubt, this group has created, yeah, Coda, please. Coda asked, will I take a mechanics question? Yeah, please do. This has created probably one of the best RPG experiences I've ever had. I'll give Coda here a second to ask his question. And, of course, he's asking the worst person because I'm terrible with mechanics. Not terrible. I get them mixed up in my head. Let's see. Anybody else in the chat, please, if you have any questions for me, please post them up. Other things real quick. If you want to hear me interview Eric Grenstam, who wrote Raven's Purge, just go to Tabletop Talk, the podcast, and I've got a 2-hour interview with him. He's phenomenal. And I interview a lot of other creators there. And then, of course, all of the APs. Okay. All right, so Coda's question is, cold endurance rolls every hour, every turn. Are the zones cramped, rough, and dark? Sten can use the path of the hunter to ignore armor. That's a good point. So I'm gonna have to look into that, Coda. These are good. So I'm gonna have to make some decisions on all of that, right? Yeah, maybe every turn when the PCs get wet. I don't know, Coda. I'm going to have to think about that because there's a good chance of them picking up cold. So yeah, I'm going to have to think and make a decision about that. Definitely them being wet can make a big of a difference. I think the bigger one is, and the other question, I'm sorry, are the zones cramped, rough, and dark? The answer is yes. I'm going to make this, claustrophobic is one of the big things I want them to feel during all of this. Path of the hunter to ignore armor on the mother. I'll tell you, because the mouth thing, What I may do is if he uses Path of the Hunter, I'll let him discover the mouth and recognize that the mouth is her vulnerability. And he can either shoot, even with Path of the Hunter, against the 10 armor, because that's her gross, disgusting body, right? This is not like she's wearing armor. Or he can take the -2 to focus on the mouth cavity to ignore armor. I think that's what I'll probably do, Coda. I think that's what I'll probably do. All right, guys. Good seeing everybody. Thanks to everybody that came into... Oh, hold on. So Kachi 13, I also have one I'm curious about. Do you plan your random encounters or randomize all of them? Also, frequency of using them. So if you're talking about the travel random encounters, I do them live on the show. When we're playing. Now, I've read them all, right? So I'm very familiar with each of the potential encounters that could happen, but I roll them live, and it's part of the fun I have playing as a GM, to be perfectly honest with you, is having those random encounters be truly random. And I use the standard table. So how do I decide whether they encounter something or not? I use the table, right? The first third of the table is no encounter. And I've been really evil because the encounters that they've already used, I've locked out of the tables, and I've replaced them with Book of the Beasts encounters. Which could be those Book of the Beasts, which is the new book that they just kickstarted that I think should start fulfilling pretty soon. But us backers already got the PDF. There's some nasty monsters in that book, but some really good random encounters for each of the monsters. I think each monster has 2 random encounters you can use. So I guess my answer to you, Kachi, is that I use just the standard traveling rules. I think, and I'll have to go back into the book, there is some random encounters that happen here. I'll use the same timing that's recommended in the Stoneloom mines, so I'm not going to up it or down it at all. But, you know, the heart of your question is, do you plan my random encounters? The answer is I don't. I don't pre-roll them, I guess is the way I should say it. I've read them, I'm familiar with them, but part of the fun I'm having is live as we're playing, seeing the random encounter and figuring out how I can make it not feel like Craig rolled a 46. Like I want it to feel part of the journey. And I'm having a lot of fun with that little challenge of weaving this in and making it feel natural. From a meta standpoint, the players know, you know, when they encounter an ogre on their way across the grasslands, that was a random encounter. But it's great if it doesn't feel like, you know, Craig rolled a 46 on the random table. Beluga, could the avatar being a little girl be an asset the players want to protect and save her? So with this group, the answer is yes. You have the potential of them, you know, wanting to protect and save her. So I think I'm going to lean in on that and be a real bad person. I think I'm going to start off making her feel innocuous, playful, and I think I want them to think maybe we're down here to rescue Marga. I think then I'm going to make her brattier, less patient with them, and then eventually she's going to turn on them. But I don't want that to happen until they encounter the mother, because I think it's the mother that's going to give them the little bit of the lore dump. Explain, you know, who the daughter is, that there's another daughter. But I think the journey that I'm going to have the players take with Marta is, at first, she's innocent, she's innocuous, and maybe we're here to find her and to save her. Might even have her mention the pretty gem and sword that her mother has that mom won't let me play with, right? To really reinforce that one of the artifacts are down here. But yeah, I want the child to turn on them, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the the physical appearance of the child change as she becomes less childlike, which may end up getting me to the answer that I was struggling with. So maybe by the time she becomes violent, if she's in avatar form, I may make her not even look like a child anymore. I just might make her look like a small demon. That'll help me as far as that goes. All right, guys, we're just at an hour and a quarter. Thanks so much, especially for those of you watching live. For those of you watching video on demand, if you enjoyed this and you found this helpful, we've got 3 other ones for 3 other sites. And again, please come watch us play this live, or watch the video on demand. Episode 1, that's the only place to start. Take care, all. Howdy, friends. Thank you for watching. All our content is archived and organized in playlists on the Third Floor Wars YouTube channel. Check it out. And if you could like, follow, subscribe, and even set your notifications to this channel on YouTube and Twitch, we'd appreciate it, and it'll make sure that you catch all of our content. I talk with creators, designers, and experts across the gaming landscape in every episode of our podcast, Tabletop Talk. Open up your favorite podcatcher and search for Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. Support your creators. They make the content you love, and it's your support that makes it happen. If you want to help us, go to Third Floor Wars on patreon.com, and you can help us for as little as $1 a month. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Take care.